Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Birdy and the Beast, released in 1944. It's the 438th in the series and it's directed by Bob Clampett. You can find this beautiful restoration on the Looney Tunes Platinum Collection Volume 2 DVD and Blu-ray set, and I have a link below to that set. It's under copyright, you will not find it on YouTube, but in case you haven't seen this one, this is just a very gag-driven cartoon where a cat is out to chase a bird, this bird being, of course, Tweety, and this is during his rather sadistic phase, so not really much to it. First up you're going to hear is the original audio commentary re-edited before I had to take that down due to copyright on YouTube, and after that you'll hear some new thoughts from me. So without further ado, let's get into it. With me I have Austin Kelly, who actually got Mark Hauser on the channel, which is still awesome, so say hi.
Hi, I'm very glad to be here, and I did get Kausler on the channel, and he was a joy to talk to. And Mark, if you're listening, thank you again. He was really a wonderful person.
What interested me about this short as well was how it credited Tom McKimson as the animator, and most people know Bob McKimson, of course, not only as an amazing animator but also as a director.
He was a layout guy in the Clampett unit, and he did a lot of great model sheets. Like there's a book review model sheet that circulates around the internet. I believe that's Tom's work. He even signs that. He did stuff. There's like a similar model sheet for a Bashful Buzzard and all kinds of fun stuff. And he helped out animating a little bit, but most people know him because he did a lot of art for the Western Publishing Looney Tunes comics. Not so much the cover art, but he did a lot of the stuff in the late 40s, and it's very Clampett-ish, and it's like the most enjoyable that those Looney Tunes comics ever got, because they were very odd at times, if people are listening and they know what I mean.
With this one, so yeah, we got Tweety, who's of course in this one named. This is the first time he's actually named. He was originally in A Tale of Two Kitties, but in a more supporting role, but didn't actually have a name, and must have proved pretty popular because, well, he's back in his sadistic version as well. What we're seeing here, though, with Butch, as every bulldog was known in the 40s, of course, this is not Bob McKimson. we know it's a Scribner, but I'll tell you what, if you need to freeze frame anything, this is one to freeze frame as well. Just every frame of this particular scene is just crazy. And I like how Tweety's just looking on the two of them just fighting. Is just this sadistic onlooker, and that's what he pretty much is in this entire short.
There are these famed things Kausler told me about called energy sketches that Clampett would do, and they were just very rough but extreme drawings that Clampett would do for any given scene. And if you look very closely at a scene like that Scribner scene you just pointed out, you'll see a lot of really wild poses that were probably suggested to Scribner by Clampett through one of those wacky drawings that I've sadly never seen before, but I'm sure those drawings do circulate through private collections, and it would just be a dream to see those because they would probably be hilarious. Oh, I want to point out this scene here where the cat's nailing the Home Sweet Home sign on the tree. This is animated by a Freeling animator that went by the name of Gil Turner. Gil was in the unit, the Clampett unit, very briefly after spending a long time in the Freeling unit. He does this scene in Hair Ribbon where you can very obviously tell that he's drawing way too much in the Freeling style, and there's a pose that Bugs gets held in, and it's very clear that it was like a Bob McKimson pose that he probably stepped in and drew because Gil was going way too off model. But the real tell that Gil animated on this is that first scene where the cat's climbing up the tree, and the tree like goes to the side, but the cat's climbing in the air, and he's still climbing. The cat's turns into like a bulldog type character, and he's got these flabby cheeks. Gil did that a lot, especially with the dog comes to mind in Bars and Stripes Forever, which was a Hardaway Dalton cartoon, of course. But yeah, definitely some interesting, at least Gil Turner animation in this cartoon. I mean, it's not my favorite Tweety, but I think this high-def restoration is gorgeous, and I think it's got some really fun animation and gags.
So that was the re-edit of the original commentary. And I definitely have a few more thoughts on this one, having rewatched it, because we did go off on a few tangents regarding Tom McKimson and other things like that. So just a few bits of trivia before I go through the short itself. So Clampett actually slightly redesigned Tweety in this short compared to his first appearance in A Tale of Two Kitties, and there's still lack of feathers, so he's still essentially naked. It only really became a problem, according to Clampett, in the next short he did with Tweety in A Gruesome Twosome. This is actually the final Merry Melody short to credit Leon Schlesinger, because he essentially sells his studio to Warner Brothers proper, and then just works in their merchandising department for a while and then passes away a few years later. And while this should be obvious, but I'm going to mention it anyway, the title itself is a play on the French story Beauty and the Beast, which I'm sure most of you would know it best through the Disney film, but yeah, that's where it comes from. But let's take a look at this short from the start, and right away I love the opening shot with this cat looking for some prey. I love the design of this cat, by the way, with its pop belly, but it looks rather vicious in this shot, and then you get that nice little contrast where he's doing some silly tiptoeing during all of that. It's very Clampett, and is done very well here. So we see that Tweety's in his nest, although we don't see Tweety quite yet, and so the cat's hungry and decides to climb up the tree. We already covered the weird look of the cat with the jowls, looking like a bulldog in a few certain bits, but it's one of those things where once you notice that, you can't unnotice it. And when I watch this again, I'm thinking, wow, that's a very strange look for the cat, but anyway. So once the cat does reach the nest, we more or less get a repeat of what happened in A Tale of Two Kitties, where one of the cats is looking over the nest. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good way to introduce Tweety again, and apparently the audiences would have liked it the first time, so why not do it again, right? But you do have to wonder why this cat feels the need to whistle and cause that breeze that causes Tweety to grab his tongue like a blanket. But whatever, just go with it. Otherwise, if he just ate Tweety, well, we wouldn't really have a cartoon now, would we? But anyway, so Tweety finally realizes that there's a cat there, and he says is now trademark I taught a tour putty tat, which I feel it probably became more well known once Freeling took over and really drove that home. But anyway, I do admit probably the only real flaw in this short is that this whole beginning sequence does take a little bit too long, but it's a minor criticism. The short is fantastic, but yeah, I did notice that this takes a little bit too long. So the cat gets angry and tries to reach out and get Tweety in his nest, but with Tweety being the resourceful bird that he is, already has a secret exit, and I just like how it just says exit there, because why not? So we see some nice bits of animation, so the cat is saying, "Oh, why you?" while he holds down his face. It's a subtle bit of animation, but it's so good. Every time I watch this short, I always notice something new, and that's what I noticed new this time around. So we get the chase in the air, which is one of my two favorite gags in this short. Just the idea that this cat just randomly starts flapping his arms, he's just flying along like it's normal. Tweety points out, "Hey, I didn't know you could fly," and the cat realizes, "Wait a minute, I can't fly."
Gee whiz, Putty Cat. I didn't know you could fly.
You didn't know I could fly, huh? Fly!
And the reaction shots, perfect. Absolutely perfect. You know, he struggles in the air for a while, and then at one point he just shrugs and go, "Oh well, I stuffed up, didn't I?" And he falls to the ground. Tweety then remarks that poor Putty Cat, he fall down and go boom.
Oh, the poor kitty cat. He fall down, go,
Boom!
Now, he says that twice in this short, so I'm wondering if that was the trademark saying that Clampett was going for, as opposed to a tall putty tat, which would end up being his trademark phrase. So Tweety ends up landing on the cat's belly, but wow, this cat really fell to the ground, didn't he? Well, there's a pretty big impact there, but anyway. So Tweety then fools the cat by hiding in Butcher's dish, and then once again, all dogs in the 1940s animated shorts had to be called Butch or Spike or something similar, right? But anyway, so the cat comes in and starts looking at Butcher's dish. I love how we briefly hear Powerhouse in this scene amongst the wonderful animation. But have a look closely in the foreground, you got a puddle of mush, and eventually that turns into Tweety. It's a minor little detail. It's very bizarre, but hey, it works, right? So Butch then appears, pounds the cat to the ground, but then the cat throws the dish at the dog's face, and then we see a minor little chase scene, and Butch ends up being choked by the chain. I do wonder, though, with Bob McKimson's involvement as an animator, did he keep this sequence in mind for when he did his Foghorn shorts later on, where the whole barnyard dog getting choked by a chain bit? I don't know, but things like that tend to happen. Sometimes you remember a good idea. Love the face of the bulldog, though, once his face is all scrunched up, and he mentions a line, "This shouldn't even happen to a dog," and that's the same line that was used as a punchline in Hair Ribbon by that Russian dog. So we don't see the bulldog ever again in this short, and we now focus back on Tweety, who's now wondering where did the cat actually go. We all know that this is a conniving little bird, right? So he's looking around and ends up walking in the cat's mouth. You sort of know what to expect here, and sure enough, he lights the cat's tongue on fire. And I love that build-up with the face of the cat, how it changes colors, and we see the smoke coming out, and we just see the exaggerated look of him in, well, pain. So Tweety escapes, he's pretending like he's a victim, saying, "Help, help, there's a fire," and then turns into basically a fireman bird, or whatever you want to call it. So he ends up getting the hose, and even does this funny fire truck bell. I mean, we hear a siren these days through the speakers, but back then, most fire trucks will just have a bell that's rung really loud, or at least in the country areas anyway. So he's doing that, and gotta love Mel Blanc's rendition of that. But just to show how sadistic that Tweety was around this time, he puts the hose in. You think it's a fire hose to put out the fire, but no, it's a gas can. Oof, yeah, this Tweety was definitely a lot more brutal than what he'd become under Freeling, that's for sure. He then mentions, the poor putty cat, he got hot as a firecracker. He blow up, go boom, which once again makes me think that that's what Clampett was trying to push as like a catchphrase for Tweety.
Ooh, the poor putty cat got hot as a firecracker. He blow up, go boom.
We then see a small scene with Tweety walking around and whistling, which one could argue it's not really needed, but I would say with all the over-the-top gags in this short, it gives you a little bit of a breather before the next really funny gag, which is the other funny gag I absolutely adore. But just before that, we see the cat, he's actually all bandaged up, so we get a rare sense of continuity here about how damaged this cat really is. So he goes to the bottom of the tree and he ends up becoming a nest. So Tweety's about to get into it, so you'd think the cat's plan would end up working, but no, there just happens to be a hen wandering around, looking for some place to lay her eggs, I guess, and even shoos Tweety out of the way. So you gotta wonder, though, how big was the cat's mouth here, but anyway. So she's finished, she walks off, and we see that beautiful shot of the cat's mouth, which is full of eggs. The chicken even screaming just before that, "Look what I did! Look what I did!" And according to Kid Scott, apparently the chicken was voiced by Clampett himself. So there we are. And naturally, we're going to hear chicken reel, because what else are we going to listen to when we see a cat full of eggs in his mouth, right? We once again hear from Tweety, "I like him, he's silly," which, okay, Clampett's used that line many times with many different characters, but just in case you weren't aware, that comes from Wally Marr's character Wilbur in the radio show Tommy Riggs and Betty Lou. And to top it all off, we see that beautiful shot of the chicken, who happens to have a bra, which makes no sense, but is still pretty funny. And we finish on a rather brutal gag, so the cat's frustrated, he's going after Tweety, he's trying to grab him, Tweety's just pretending that he's a victim, "Oh, help, help, don't get me, putty tat," and so on, and he just happens to have a grenade. The cat then climbs down, and he's just like, I got it, just out of the satisfaction that he's finally achieved it, and we then hear off screen that he blows up and he's presumably dead now, and presumably, according to this tree trunk, Tweety's killed like, what, 200 or so cats here, but, Did I mention that Tweety was sadistic under Bob Clampett? Well, here's your proof. But wow, this one's a great one. See, unlike the first appearance of Tweety, this one he's more of a focus. And one of the challenges is such a character could get old really fast in a short like this because certain characters work better in small doses. I think here Clampett got it just right. I think it works pretty well. And this is really funny. It's not a go-to Clampett short, but you know what? This one's a great one, and every time I watch it, I discover something new. So this one gets 8.5 out of 10. It's funny, and this one would be my favorite of the 3 Clampett did. I'm not sure. I'll have to revisit the third one once again. But that will do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.
You know, I get rid of more putty tats that way.